Today's topic is International Women's Day. For more than a century, people around the world have marked International Women's Day on 8th of March. International Women's Day grew out of the labor movement. The seeds were planted in 1908 when 15,000 women marched through New York City demanding shorter working hours, better pay, and the right to vote. A year later, the Socialist Party of America declared the first National Women's Day. Clara Zetkin founded International Women's Day in 1910. The idea to make it an international event came from Clara Zetkin, a communist activist and advocate for women's rights. In 1910, she raised it at an international conference of working women in Copenhagen. Her suggestion was unanimously backed by 100 women from 17 countries who were at the conference. The first International Women's Day was celebrated in 1911 in Austria, Denmark, Germany, and Switzerland. The United Nations started marking the event in 1975. The first theme adopted by the United Nations in 1996 was Celebrating the Past, Planning for the Future. Ms. Zetkin's original idea for an international celebration was not tied to a particular day. The 8th March date was chosen after Russian women demanded bread and peace during a wartime strike in 1917. 4 days into the strike, the Tsar was forced to abdicate and the provisional government granted women the right to vote. According to the Julian calendar, which was then used in Russia, the women's strike began on the 23rd of February. In the Gregorian calendar, used in much of the rest of the world, that date is 8th of March. International Women's Day is a national holiday in many countries. In China, many women are given a half day off work as advised by the State Council. Thousands of events take place globally, including marches, talks, concerts, exhibitions, and debates. In Italy, International Women's Day is called Festa della Donna, and mimosa blossoms are a popular gift. Flower sales in Russia typically double around the International Women's Day. In the United States of America, March is Women's History Month. A presidential proclamation issued every year honors the achievements of American women. In an Instagram post at the beginning of March 2024, United States President Joe Biden said the month would celebrate the legacy of sung and unsung trailblazers and advocates who have made the world a fairer, more just, and freer place. Purple, green, and white are the colors of International Women's Day, according to the International Women's Day website. It says that the purple signifies justice and dignity, green symbolizes hope, white represents purity, albeit a controversial concept. A message from United Nations on Women's Day celebration. New York, 8th of March 2024. On International Women's Day, United Nations women call for the world to invest in women and accelerate progress. As the best way to accelerate economic growth and build more prosperous, equitable societies. This is particularly urgent when war and crisis are eroding the achievements of decades of investments in gender equality. From the Middle East to Haiti, Sudan, Myanmar, Ukraine, Afghanistan, and elsewhere, women pay the biggest price for conflicts that are not of their making. The need for peace has never been more urgent. 1 in every 10 women in the world lives in extreme poverty. Climate change is accelerating persistent poverty gaps as competition for scarce resources intensifies, livelihoods are threatened, societies become more polarized and women bear an increasingly heavy burden. The number of women and girls living in conflict-affected areas doubled since 2017. Now more than 614 million women and girls live in conflict-affected areas. In conflict areas, women are 7.7 times more likely to live in extreme poverty. At prime working age, only 61% of women are in the labor force versus 90% of men. We cannot continue to miss out on the gender equality dividend. More than 100 women and girls could be lifted out of poverty if government prioritizes education and family planning, fair and equal wages, and expanded social benefits. Almost 300 million jobs could be created by 2035 through investments in care services such as provision of daycare and elderly care. And closing gender employment gaps could boost gross domestic product per capita by 20% across all regions. The current reality is far from this. Programs dedicated to gender equality represent only 4% of official development assistance. An additional 360 billion US dollars in developing countries is needed per year to achieve gender equality and women's empowerment. This is less than one-fifth of the US dollars 22.2 trillion spent globally on military expenditure in 2022, for example. The areas needing investment are clear and understood. First and foremost, there must be an investment in peace. Beyond this, the investments needed include laws and policies that advance the rights of women and girls, transformation of social norms that pose barriers to gender equality, guaranteeing women's access to land, property, healthcare, and education, and decent work, and financing women's group networks at all levels. UN Women is also calling on member states at the Commission on the Status of Women, starting in New York in 11th March 2024, to back up their commitments on gender equality with resources. The world's leaders have this opportunity to develop concrete and progressive agreed conclusions that reflect the crucial need for financing gender equality, women's empowerment, and women's organizations. They must seize it for the sake of equality, our planet, and sustainable development goals. The challenges women face in Nigeria. Nigeria has a long history of gender inequality and discrimination against women. Women in Nigeria face a number of challenges, including limited access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities. Women are also disproportionately affected by poverty, violence, and other forms of discrimination. Gender inequality in Nigeria is influenced by different cultures and beliefs. In most parts of Nigeria, women are considered subordinate to their male counterparts, especially in northern Nigeria, as well as in other sectors including the Nigerian music industry, politics, and educational sector. Women have been targets of violence during elections to discourage them from vying for positions. They have faced physical, sexual, psychological, and socio-economic violence. The government must ensure that political parties provide a level playing ground for all and punish any act of violence against women. The continuing poverty and deprivation in the country, declining terms of trade, and the burden of external debt create an unfavorable environment for development. Of the limited resources available, little is allocated to women. Women in politics and public life at all levels, from the panchayats to the parliament to people's movements, face sexist and gendered abuse by opponents. Women continue to have unequal access to land and other resources. Women farmers rarely have land patterns to insure in their name. In addition to gender biases, discriminatory policies, and other forms of harassment, women often have limited access to land, funding, networks, and the education available to men. Nigeria for Women is helping overcome these challenges and improve the standards of living in rural areas. Patriarchal societies limit women in many ways, including their diets, the division of labor, and the way they relate to their family. They all have a direct impact on women's health. A breakdown of the life expectancy statistics show that women do not live as long as men. How to support women worldwide. You can support gender equality and women's empowerment around the world by getting involved in a number of ways. Take part in one of the UN's women's campaigns, raise awareness on social media, donate to help us achieve our mission. Your voice matters, your actions make it real. Number 1, place women as leaders and give them decision-making roles. Although many women are now powerful contributors to the economy of some states, gender equality is still a myth in the greater part of the world. Women have actively started participating in tech industry, food production, natural resource management, domestic wellness, entrepreneurial work, as well as energy and climate change. But most women still don't have access to good job opportunities and resources to get a better paid job. As the focus shifts towards inclusive economic structures, providing women with leadership opportunities and making them a part of decision making can go a long way in achieving women's empowerment. More job opportunities. Number 2. Despite being significant contributors to social and financial development, women don't have access to equal job opportunities. Equal rights programs can invest significantly in promoting decent jobs and public policies advocating growth and development. Number 3, invest in women's entrepreneurial ideas emotionally and financially. An effective way of tackling gender inequality is entrusting women with entrepreneurial work. The state can take initiatives to train women in business skills for better job opportunities. Looking at global developments, many developing countries are spending a percentage of annual revenues in women's development. Taking action against unpaid labor work. One of the biggest concerns about gender inequality is women's unpaid labor. Many marginalized groups, including rural women and domestic workers, are often deprived of economic independence, and many times their labors go unnoticed by society. Number 5, mentoring women professionally and personally. Implementing fancy rules cannot drive away unequal pay gaps and the lack of job opportunities for women. To eliminate the problem from the grassroots levels, gender-sensitive economic policies should be deployed to help women actualize their entrepreneurial goals and promote them as leaders. Mentoring programs should adopt a more holistic approach wherein both personal and professional aspects are taken care of. In conclusion, the women empowerment programs are investing abundantly in the welfare and empowerment of women, encouraging women to break free from their traditional roles and do away with gender stereotypes. There are various ways of achieving women's financial empowerment, and the aforementioned recommendations are only to name a few. To keep up with the changing global trends and fulfill sustainable development goals, it's time to break barriers and explore alternative programs for advocating equal opportunities for women and promoting financial inclusivity.